We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Hyperkind Unleashed Issue 1. This is a one-shot from Marvel Comics in 1994. It was written by Fred Burke, pencils by Fabio Laguna, with help from Manuel Flores and Luke Ross. Mike Halbieb and Dan Schaeffer did the inks. Steve Dutro on letters. Elaine Lee colors. Edited by Mark McLaren. So our teen heroes are in their Hyperkind outfits and they are fighting some bad guys trying to save the pharaohs who are being attacked because they blew a drug courier event, which was a bunch of cocaine, which in fact was George's responsibility before he became a muck. So while they're trying to break this up, they kind of go over the history of what happened in the regular series. It does a decent job bringing you up to speed, but it's really kind of just padding for the storyline. They eventually go back to Amber Trance, trying to find out a little bit more about what their purpose is. They're really conflicted about their powers, and since she's one of the original Praxis group that first got the powers, she goes over again what that's all about. A muck goes and confronts his friend, who really considers selling him out and using their powers for one big score. It's a bit convoluted at that point, but they do find out they have to go talk to Thermic, and they make their way to where he's at, which is kind of a neat idea actually. He's got his own little monastery temple thing with some monks that are kind of followers of Quo, and they try and talk to him, but they end up in a fight like you would expect. And again, they contemplate giving up their powers. Then the dog consciousness decides to send them all into outer space after they confront Eichenbacher, who turns out to be not exactly what they thought. And we're left with a cliffhanger ending that will never ever be resolved because, well, this was the last one shot they did from the Clive Barker line, and I think all the rights reverted back to Clive Barker's estate. There's also a backup story called Ritual, which is a 2-page, very short story for Hokum and Hex, which I thought was really lacking in the space it needed to breathe. It was way too short, and I don't buy comic books to read short stories. And again, Hokum and Hex was one of the better books in this series, so I don't know why they picked Hyperkind to go with, but this is dollar bin material. It's not that great. It's not bad. It's just aimed at a younger audience, and it uses a lot of pop psychology and really ham-fisted storytelling, forcing you from one event to another, and it really doesn't seem to get anywhere. And by the time it starts to get anywhere, it leaves off with a cliffhanger ending that you know is never going to be resolved. So if you could pick it up out of a dollar bin, that would be about the only way I'd say to bother tracking it down. The art's not bad overall. It's very 90s, but it's got some really good detailing, and they do a lot of cool posing in it. And the way their powers end up being changed by the end of the story actually makes a little more sense than it did at the beginning, especially with Amok's hands not having any fingers. They're just blades, making it very impossible for him to pick anything up. So they finally correct that and kind of clear up their outfits a little bit so they're a little bit more in line with what superheroes would actually have and making them a bit more functional. And I liked that, but it really should have been a mini-series and not a one-shot. I think that would have made more sense. So it's got a lot of issues, but for what it is, if you pull it out of a dollar bin, you'll be entertained. It's got everything pretty well summed up, so you don't have to read the original series, although that would help significantly. But there's just too much in here going on at one time for it to be a single issue and make coherent sense. But by today's standards, it's practically a masterpiece. So if you're looking for something entertaining, but not the greatest thing you've ever read, this is going to be it. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.